Hello Capsuleers, Euphorious here, back with our next tutorial video for EVE Online. This time we're going to be looking at fitting a ship. Fitting ships are one of the most important parts of the game. If you can't fit a ship, then it's really hard to be able to do anything in EVE. Everything from mining, to PvP, to PvE, to transporting, everything requires fitting ships. The only time you're really not going to be using fitting is if you're just like sitting in a trade hub trading. But first let's go over here and look at the fitting screen. So this is a very basic Punisher fit. It's similar to the one that Aruma gave out with a couple different changes. I switched this fit, instead of being a brawler like the one you all were using, to more of a kiting fit so that I can stay away from enemies. I have the 3 guns, but I have gamma crystals in it that allow me to have more range, and I have my 5 Mega Newton micro warp drive, gives me a little bit more speed, and the same here in the low slots. So let's just take a look at the fitting screen. I talked a little bit about this in the first video, the kind of overview of EVE, but as you can see, there are kind of 4 categories here. Frigates have very few slots. The bigger ships have more slots in each kind of area. Destroyers tend to have a lot more high slots because they fit more guns and that kind of thing. So we have high slots up here. This is generally where your guns are going to go. Anything that requires a lot of power, like cloaking, salvagers, mining lasers, strip miners, ice miners, missile launchers, any kind of launchers, and any kind of turrets. So this is the high slot. You can see how many turret hardpoints you have here. This is how many turrets you can fit. So you can see we have, on this fitting, we have 4 high slots. So you say, why not fit an extra turret there, because you get more DPS. But we only have 3 turret hardpoints, so that means we can only fit that many turrets to this vehicle. So if we wanted to put, you know, a cloak there, if you know, we wanted to be cloaky, or some other module that goes in the high slot that doesn't require a turret hardpoint, then we could put that there. Next, over here, this icon, this is the number of launcher hardpoints. Some ships you can't use launchers on, such as this frigate. Other ships you can, and this will be how many launcher hardpoints you have. And again, these will go in the high slots here. And over here, this is the rigs. We will get to that later, because rigs are probably the most, not complex, but the hardest part of fitting a ship. Over here we have mid slots. Mid slots tend to be kind of like medium power requirement modules, such as micro warp drives, afterburners. A lot of active components will go here. Anything to do with shields will go here. And this is all of the slots that will be shield tank. So if you have a ship that's shield tanked, you'll put those modules here, and we will get into that a little bit later when we talk about armor versus shield tanking. That's a pretty big, it's an important part of fitting. And then down here we have the low slots, and this is generally where armor tank goes. Some active abilities such as armor repairs. You see we have a damage control. You can get damage control 2, that kind of stuff. And any weapon modifications, drone modifications, anything that affects your damage is generally going to be in here. And you might be drawing some connections now between armor and shield tanking and what that means for your ship. Over here on the right side, you can see all of the stats of your ship, and down here you can see the CPU. So how much CPU you have left out of how much CPU you have, and how much power you have versus how much power total. And that's kind of represented here on this bar. You can see as well, the big blue bar, how much used versus how much you have open, and the same here for the power grid. So now, since I kind of went over all this in the last video, I won't talk about that. Let's talk about rigging. So rigs, it takes a special skill. You have to train rigging, and there's a lot of different types of rigging. And ship equipment, this is the normal modules you'll put on, so most of your low, medium, and high slots are all in here. I think they all are actually. But your rigs are in the ship modifications. So you see we have rigs here. We also have subsystems down here. But we have different types of rigs. Rigs, once you put a rig onto the ship, if you take it off the ship, it's destroyed. So when you first start out and you're kind of like learning to play Eve, you just want to focus on these 3 slots, because or cheap rigs, because if you start like changing your fit around and like hauling your ships, then you have to like repackage your ship, you're gonna lose those rigs. So you want to make sure when you're fitting a rig to your ship, you really want that rig on there, or you're gonna lose it when you take it off. And it'll tell you that when you go to remove a rig. So that's kind of rigs. They do all kinds of different things. You can get some to boost your capacitor, your power grid, all kinds of stuff. So I mentioned a little bit about armor versus shield tank. Those are the 2 major components of tank, or the major types of tank that are in the game. You can also hull tank, but it's very rarely used and not very serious. So you have shielding and armor tank. Shield tank is always going to go in the mid slots, so if you have modules that you want to be using for shield tanking, you're going to put those in the medium slots. If you have armor tank modules such as armored plates or armor repairs, those are going to go down here in the low slot, which is also where your damage modifications go. So generally when you look at tanks, if a ship is shield tanked, it's going to have more damage because these low slots are going to be filled with damage modifications instead of armor modifications. If it's armor tanked, then these low slots are going to be filled by armor tank, obviously, so you're going to have less damage as a result. So when you're fitting your ship, you kind of have to think about whether you want more armor or shield, how you want to tank your ship. If you want to tank your ship, because if you go the shield route, you'll get more damage, but there's always trade-offs there. Finally, let's talk a little bit about the different ways you would want to offensively arm your ship. There are 3 kind of main fittings that you will give to an offensive-minded ship. There's the close Brawler fit, which is kind of what we were mostly running yesterday. You want to get in close to other ships. Generally, if you're close to them, the Brawler is what we call them fits. These fits are going to do more damage, but it comes with a risk because you're getting closer to the enemy ship. These ships are generally fitted with afterburners and closer range ammo that does more damage. The alternative to that is a kiting fit. So that's kind of how my ship here is fitted. It's better at shooting from further away. You see my optimal range here is 14 kilometers. So it's better further away, and it's designed to stay away from the enemy ship and just kind of like poke at them. Similar to how, an 80 carry in League of Legends or another MOBA would kite away. So you're doing the same thing to enemy ships. These ships have the trade-off of you're kind of in a more safer position because you're further away, but the trade-off is less damage. So you can see my damage per second here is 24.5 with the gamma, but if let's see. So you can see here with this, my DPS went up 4 points or so. So you get more damage closer in, but my optimal range is only 7,000 meters instead of 14,000 meters. So you have to get closer, but you do more damage, and vice versa. The last kind of offensive fitting for a ship is drone based. Drone fits, utilize drones, different types of drones, to deal damage to enemy ships. Again, you can get drone amplifying fittings for your high and low slots, I believe, and this will allow you to still stay pretty far away and your drones do your damage, but if your drones die, you lose your drones, you don't have them on you, you lose your ability to do a lot of damage. So as you can see, these three kinds of offensive fits all have drawbacks. So that is a basic overview of fitting. It's really complex. As you can see, there are so many different, these are just the different categories, and then you get in here and there's so many different modules you can fit to a ship, so many different fittings. There are a ton of fitting tools online. People post fittings that you can use, and eventually after you see people use fittings, you see kind of the fittings on the people that kill you. You can see what works and doesn't work. Corp mates can help you without fittings, and it's just going to take time to learn because there's so much information about fittings and there's so much to learn about it. One great thing about fittings is if you want to apply a fitting to the ship, you can go down here and go to Browse, and you can see I have different fittings in here, and you can select a fitting, and if you have those items in your hangar, you can select a fitting and click fit, and it'll automatically fit it to your ship. You can also strip a fitting by right-clicking on your ship and clicking strip fitting. That'll take all the modules off of it for you. And you can also go under corporation fittings, and in here people in the corporation that have the permission to do so can post fittings, and you can do the same in here. You can click on the fitting that you want, you can fit it to your ship, you can see different fittings, you can see if you have the right skills to do it. These green check marks means you have the skills to train it, and if it has a red X, you don't have the required skills. You can go in here to the module and you can see what requirements you need. So that was just a basic overview of fitting. Like I said, there's many tools online that will help you learn fitting. You can always ask us in chat. You can ask me, you can ask anyone else, and it's just going to take some time to learn all the different modules, what different modules do, and how they can help you with your ship. So thanks for watching the video. Fly safe.